Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and what a great crew I have tonight. You know what? We're talking the storyline of the night is a league that I don't know if a lot of people have really ever heard of called the National Drama League, or maybe they have. It's called the NDL. And for a lot of you folks who wonder what the NDL is, well, why don't you talk about NBA? Okay. And then we can put this bad boy together. During the course of the show, I'm going to talk about a bunch of players that are good, that are positive stories, and then we're also going to talk about some, not so much. But let me go ahead and introduce my crew here tonight. We hope you can stay with us through the entire episode. I guarantee that our opinions will have a lot of candor. And we have a new person we want to introduce to the network, Josh Kirby. And Josh, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Scott, appreciate you having me on tonight. It's a great pleasure to be on with you on today, and I appreciate the opportunity. Like he said, I'm Josh Kirby. I am the host and CEO of the Kirby on Sports podcast. You can find all of my work at www.kirbyonsports.com. I've been running my podcast for about 3 years now. This has been sort of a slow time, but just put out an interview yesterday with a graduate pitcher in softball from The Ohio State University, and talking about their run in the postseason and how it's still continuing, so on and so forth. So content is slowly getting spread out, but for the most part, it's podcasts I've been doing for a really long time. Continuing to find ways to grow and meeting people along the way like you, Scott. And that's what keeps me in this business, and that's what keeps me going.
And why don't you let everybody know what part of the country you're in, Josh?
I am from the DC metro area. So if you look on my website, you'll see my logo, and it has the DC skyline, and that's sort of a representation of where I'm from and not really who I cover. That's what I like to say. Yeah, I'll talk about DC sports here and there, but it's not like I'm going to stick primarily to the DC sports area.
Very good. Well, Josh, we're very delighted to have you join us tonight. And just your teammates tonight are Rick, Curti, Mr. Opinion. Rick, well, this show is definitely suited for you because there won't be any shortage of them tonight. When I had you on last night's edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and I told you we were talking about the NBA, you couldn't get on this show quick enough, and you're just lucky that I've known you a long time and you get executive VIP treatment to come on at the last minute, and I wasn't taking anybody off. So I said, you know what? Well, we're going to put 5 on. We don't do it often, but every so often you do it. And Rick, I have a feeling you're going to fit in very nicely with what we're doing, right, my friend?
I was salivating last night when I heard this. I said, I got to be on this show. I got to be on here. So thank you for having me on here.
You're welcome. Of course, I have to talk about my Wednesday regulars. Okay, JB Ellis from the program. Well, welcome back, JB Ellis, to the program.
What's going on? How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing all right. And last but not least, Willie at the bat. Epting. What am I starting to sound like, Chris Berman, with all these nicknames? My goodness, what am I, crazy or what?
Yeah, you're crazy.
You're crazy. I know. Well, thank you. I'm GMTA. All right, I'm asking you, what is it? What does it mean?
Great minds think alike.
Oh my goodness. I got news for you. Willie knew I was going to hit him with it after last week. So don't tell me teaching doesn't have his way. Willie, welcome back, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me once again. This is becoming more and more fun with each passing episode. So let's go get it.
That's it. All right. Well, let's talk about what's right in the NBA so we can have a little bit of structure here. And I've got a bunch of names. I'm going to go over them all, and everybody can talk about them and comment on individually. What's right about the NBA is a guy by the name of John Morant out in Memphis. My goodness. I was talking to Rick during pre-production that this guy might be one of the few guys that actually will stay in an entire place his entire career because he happens to like playing in that small town where he's the only man in town. And I guess the only way I could compare with Michael Jordan is he came Michael Jordan, and when you talk about Zion Williamson and Sam Bowie, I'm going to lump these four, and then we'll get into more detail, where you have a superstar player and a big man, and you draft because of the need versus the best athlete. So that's where I'm going to mention the comparisons with Jordan. So me, personally, I love John Morant, got a chance to see him in the postseason, and this kid here, I hope he retires a Memphis Grizzly, and I hope he gets a statue outside of Graceland and Memphis as well. So, all right, Josh, we're going to let you go ahead and talk about Ja, since we're starting with Josh talking about Ja.
Well, I do like Ja's style of gameplay. I think he's really good, and I did get a chance to see some of his gameplay in the playoffs. And like you were saying, I hope he retires the same team he's with. The thing I will say to that is the fact is, just like in any sports league, the NBA specifically is a business. And I feel like more in the NBA and maybe some in the NFL, but a lot more in the NBA from what I've seen in most recent memory, is that players will tend to voice their opinions a little too much if they want out of their current situation. And I haven't seen it happen. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to a point where if somebody wanted out, they refuse to play, so on and so forth. But I haven't seen that happen personally because I don't really watch the NBA all that often. But a guy like Ja Morant, who is fun to watch and play, and a guy who doesn't really complain a lot, that's the type of player I like to see on an NBA team, not a whiner and a complainer who, if something isn't going right, they're going to be like, hey, I want out, I want restructured, so on and so forth. And for me, at least, we see that happen all the time.
All right, Rick, Ja Morant.
I love Ja Morant. He's probably the only player I would love to see in the NBA. Like Josh, I don't watch a lot of the NBA because it's unbearable to watch. But he's one player I love to see. He reminds me so much of Allen Iverson. He's small and thin. He's fast and quick. I mean, he's an amazing basketball player. He's got his head on straight. He's so mature for his age. He loves Memphis. I mean, that's a great gig to have, because they have no pro baseball, they have no hockey, they have no football. He's the only show in town, so he's going to be the big star, and I hopefully he stays there, and he'll be the second famous person who was in Memphis. Elvis and Ja Morant. How's that?
All right, well, Willie, we'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, Ja Morant is as or if not even more athletic than Russell Westbrook. I think Russell Westbrook is the most athletic point guard that has ever played in the NBA. Ja Morant certainly is there, if not on his way there. What I love about his game is that he can fly over you, but he can also hit the jumper from the outside. He can also hit the mid-range. He can do it all. I think the one thing that I could possibly be worried about is his frail frame. But other than that, I'm a fan of his. And if he does stay in Memphis his entire career, it will mirror those like unicorns that we don't see happening, that especially during this time, during free agency and max contracts for people going to bigger markets, or, I would hate to see Ja Morant lose to the Golden State Warriors and then wind up on their team next year.
Well, that's a good point. JB, where you go with Ja?
So Ja is probably the most exciting young player in the game. There's a guy who used to play Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight film. Ja kind of reminds me of him, because whenever he touches the ball, you're going to see something special. I was watching a game last year. He took a mid-range shot. He knew it was going to miss. Shortest guy on the court, got in there, got his own rebound, and got a dunk. He hustles. He plays hard. They built a nice team around him. One of the big things this year, they were talking about how good the team was when he didn't play. They had a better record when he wasn't on the court. So they built a nice pieces around him, and he wants to win. He's happy there. I think they're going to do well in the future. He just has the right attitude for a guy you want to have.
Okay, we'll move on to our next player. And I'm going to tell you right now, this player here could play in any era. And I repeat, any era. And that individual I'm referring to is Draymond Green, formerly of Michigan State, racks up technical fouls, rebounds, plays defense, occasionally can score. And he does win championships, by the way. So, do you know much about Draymond Green, Josh?
I mean, how can you not? I mean, Draymond Green, in my opinion, from what I've seen him play, he's hardworking, athletic. I mean, he works his tail off, I'll say that, but I think sometimes he has an edge with a temper. And that's where the technical fouls come into play. And I feel like at times there were times where Draymond Green's such a crybaby over nothing. And that's part of the drama in the NBA, in my opinion. But I mean, that's what comes with playing aggressive and hard and physical and winning championships.
Yeah, he's a little bit of Rasheed Wallace in him with the amount of technical fouls he gets. But you know what? I'll take Draymond Green all day long. Right, Rick?
I'm not really a fan of Draymond Green, to be quite honest with you. I think he's a crybaby. He needs to stop learning how to kick people in the private parts. He'll be great. He's built around Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, and if he went to another team, I don't see him winning. So. I kind of believe he's more on the overrated side, in my opinion. I'm just not a big fan, and I just think he could be. I mean, he's a great basketball player, but he's just like Josh said, his temper. He's got a bad attitude. He got fined for flipping off the fans, which to me is a big no. And his attitude was, "Well, I make $30 million a year, so I don't care." That's just not my cup of tea.
So if I hear you correctly, okay, that you feel that he's a beneficiary of the system that he's in, otherwise you could really care less about his game for the most part, right?
Absolutely. He's part of the system. Go anywhere else and he will not win.
All right, Willie, where are you going with this one?
I agree with you, Scott, in the fact that he could play in any era. I mean, if you put him in the 80s, he could be a bruiser still. If you put him in the 90s, he could be a bruiser. Obviously, he's been in the 2000s, but what makes him able to play in any era is the fact that he is a top defender and he can defend 4 positions. Now, in terms of his antics on the court, I don't really care for them. However, he is the undisputed spiritual leader of that team, and we can get into whether or not he would succeed in a different system or not. That's the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick argument, which Tom Brady has obviously proven that he can win outside that system. But as far as Draymond goes, look, man, he is the player that I want on my team. But if I am playing against him, he is the one that I am trying to get tossed out.
Well, there you go. I guess I couldn't have said it a whole lot better. So I'll hit you back with the GMTA there, Willie. All right, well, that leaves you out there, JB, to talk about Draymond.
Listen, he's definitely the leader of the team. He's the spiritual, emotional leader of the Warriors. But the issue is he has to, with that responsibility, comes things you have to do. And you got to take charge of your temper and your attitude. And, when you look back to the championship they lost against Cleveland, part of it was because of a meltdown he had. You can't do that at the wrong time. It's one thing to do that game 47 in the regular season, but in the playoffs and the championship, you can't do that. His talent is definitely there. He's not as good as he was a few years ago. He's been hurt consistently, but plenty of talent. But he's got to learn with being a leader there comes responsibility, and you have to turn it on and off at the right times.
Okay, well, I'm glad we have a lot of different opinions on it. Not everybody's going to think the guy, to me, is an individual that you're really crazy about. But again, I'm going to stick back what I believe he can play in any era. And again, the X factor here, Willie, is defense, intensity, and rebounding. Anytime you can have defense, intensity, rebounding, I don't care. You can play in any era, regardless of who the opponent is. Russell, and whatnot, Kareem. As long as you can bang and you get rebounds, Dennis Rodman, the names go on and on. And that's where I think Draymond, and I do believe he will get in the Hall of Fame at some point or another. Next person I want to talk about is Joel Embiid. All I can say about Joel Embiid, needs a supporting cast. He's the only player left, I think, from the process when Philadelphia was tanking the whole time. So I'm going to lead off with you this time, Willie, okay, to talk about Joel Embiid. I like him. The more he continues to play, I think he assumes more of a leadership role, and he's the identity of the Philadelphia 76ers. So I would love to see Joel Embiid have enough supporting parts to ultimately win a championship. And I know the 76ers I don't think they've been to a conference finals for 12 years. So, of course, some of those are really bad years anyways. But Joel Embiid, to me, has to wear the Superman cape because he really didn't have anything around him. And I'll get to one of his teammates later in the show. So, Willie, take over from there and talk about Joel.
Yeah, Joel Embiid is he has become everything that we thought he would be when he was at Kansas. In spite of all of the injuries to his feet, he seems to have overcome that. He is the undisputed leader of that team, and I believe that they need to surround him with another shooter. He's actually a defensive force. I'm telling you, Joel Embiid, man, he could go down as one of the top 7 centers in this game. If he gets him a championship, I don't know if it's going to happen in Philadelphia. I'm hoping that for some reason that they do not, and I repeat, they do not choose James Harden or James Frauden over him.
All right, JB, where are you going with Joel?
He started out with a lot of injuries his first couple of years. He's still young. He plays hard. He's taken over leadership of that team. There's not much not to like about him. Like Willie said, if they get the right supporting cast, Ben Simmons disappeared on him after the whole playoff debacle. Harden, I get why they went for him. At least they got somebody on the court with them. So, it just wasn't the answer. But how can you not like Joel Embiid? He does all the right things.
Josh?
I think you two said it perfectly, Scott and Willie. I feel like, well, like you said, he's a great player. Injuries early. He just needs that supporting cast. I mean, I don't think I have any more than that because you two said it so well.
All right, Rick.
Oh, I love Embiid. To me, he was my pick for MVP. I thought he should have got it, but I mean, he had a great year. The only thing about him, he does get injured. He does get these nagging injuries, and he needs a better supporting cast. And I agree with James Frauden. If they choose Harden over Embiid, that would be the most stupidest thing that the 76ers have done. So I hope he stays there. I love seeing him win a championship there. I remember the Julius Irving days of the Sixers and all that in their heyday. And I love to see him win a championship in Philadelphia. And we'll see. But to me, the thing with him is that he just is a little too injury prone.
All right, now I'm going to mention a lot of names throughout the course of the broadcast, okay? But this one is my favorite of the broadcast. And if I'm saying my favorite out of the many names, you'll understand why. Jimmy Butler, to me, okay, has a heart of a lion. Here's a guy who is underestimated. And since he's obviously with Miami, okay, he's second to Dwayne Wade in history for 40-point games in the playoff career. Last night he had 41 is what he did in their win against Boston. You tell me, you talk about Philadelphia. I love his canny intensity where Tobias Harris over me. Gotta love him. I mean, started with the Bulls, went up to Minnesota, tried to light a fire under them, left with Philadelphia, and now he's with Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. If there's anybody that's in the right situation, Jimmy Butler is it. And I'm going to reiterate what I said. Of all the ones we're going to mention, Jimmy Butler is my favorite player in this particular show. And again, you put yourself with Dwayne Wade in the history of the Miami Heat and everything that this kid does. He's got the heart of a lion. I think he has a little Allen Iverson with inside of him too. The way he works so hard and just crashes the boards and does everything you can expect out of him. So Jimmy Butler, I hope you do not go titleless without a title, because if there's anybody that deserves one, he does. And I think he even led the Heat to the finals against, what was it, the Lakers. So he's seen the finals. I just hope he has a chance to close the deal. With that said, Willie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He started out in Chicago as a defensive stopper. You've seen the progress of his game. You've seen the evolution of his game over the years. He goes to Minnesota, and I remember a story that I heard that he actually took on the best players and scored more points by himself on one team than the other players did as a whole. And this dude, man, when he went off to Philadelphia, I thought it was a perfect match. I thought it was a perfect match with Butler in the city of Philadelphia because of his work ethic. When you're the 30th pick overall, you got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, okay? And he is going to give it all that he has every single time on the court. He's not going to cheat us whatsoever. He's not going to be part of the what do you call it? When they hold him out for a game, time management or no, the load management. Yeah, he's not going to be a part of any of that. If he's going to play, if he's hurt, he's going to play. And but for them being the Philadelphia 76ers picking Tobias Harris over him, if that were the opposite, we probably would be talking about the 76ers in the finals before this year, if not going this year or going this season. But one thing about Jimmy Butler that I love, and he said this in the series after beating the Heat. I'm sorry, not beating the Heat. They are the Heat. After they beat the who did they play in the last series? I can't remember who it was, but whoever it was they beat, he basically said this: I don't give a bleep if our shots are not falling. If we just concentrate on playing defense, we're going to be fine. And that's the type of dog that you want, because he is a dog.
Yeah, well, obviously they made easy work out of Atlanta, that's for sure. So when you think about Butler, though, and Dwayne Wade, I do believe they played their college ball at Marquette University. Mm-hmm. So you've got a little bit of a Marquette connection. And again, when you set him up with Eric Spoelstra, who channels his intensity, Pat Riley's got to love the guy. He really does. They don't care how ballistic he gets, because when you got a guy who's a heart of a lion, that can play defense, score, take over, and wants to do everything right, you look the other way and you don't worry about it. And Jimmy Butler, what can I say? All right, JB.
Willie, you got to stop looking at my notes during the show, because he plays with a chip on his shoulder for sure. I'm sitting here waiting to say that. It's 2 weeks in a row. You got to stop this. But no, he's got that perfect attitude. You're 100% right. Him in Philly was the personality to match the city. It's a shame the Sixers went the other way with Tobias Harris. Anyone that doesn't like Jimmy Butler, doesn't like hard work, doesn't like a guy that just wants to win and will do whatever it takes to win, that's the guy you want to have on your team. There's not a bad thing I can say. The only thing, he may be too intense for his teammates, which is scary to think that, guys that are in the NBA don't have that intensity at times, but it's like any workplace. There are some people that are about giving their best effort, and some that just don't want to be bothered, just want to cash the paycheck. Jimmy Butler's not just cashing paychecks. He's doing whatever he can to win.
Josh, some thoughts about Jimmy?
Jimmy, like JB just said, he's doing more than just cashing a paycheck. Yeah, Jimmy Butler works hard 110% of the time. He puts in extra effort, and it goes to show on and off the basketball court. And like you said, Scott, you just hope he wins a championship before going to a titleist. So,
right.
I love Jimmy Butler, big heart, not the biggest guy. I think when they picked him over Tobias Harris, he just had a more of a bigger chip and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong, 76ers. And right now they look like idiots. And so I'm glad he's with the Heat. That's a perfect team. You got Spoelstra, who's to me one of the most underrated and underappreciated head coaches in all of sports. Of course, Pat Riley right there. The Heat have won championships. It's in the city, Miami. I think that's a perfect fit for him. So I think it was a blessing in disguise for him to leave Philadelphia and go to Miami. And, I mean, he's just a great player. He's electrifying. And he's just a very, very hard worker. And I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Butler.
Well, they have a winning culture in Miami. They've won titles before, and all he's going to do is add to it. I've only got 3 more guys I want to talk about on the what's right, and then we'll talk about what's wrong. So I want to make sure we move it along and talk about everybody. And the next one we're going to talk about is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I only have one word to describe Antetokounmpo: Superman. So there you go. And at least he has a title, so he won't go titleless. So with that said, I'll keep my comments very brief, and I do it once in a while so everybody else can say something, okay? Superman won a title. Rick Curti, go ahead.
Great player. He another like Ja Morant, plays in a small market. He seems very, very happy there. He won that championship. When you heard all these people say he's never going to win in a small market, and he proved them all wrong. So I'm happy for him. To me, he's the best player in the NBA. He's just the Greek freak. What can I say? He's phenomenal. He's very well liked, good looking guy, great smile, great basketball player. He just has it all, and he's like one of the blessings. With him and Ja Morant are 2 of the big bright spots in the NBA.
All right, let me add one little nugget out here, and it'll be a Denver nugget that we do mention, but this is a real nugget here. When I was covering the Detroit Pistons, John Hammond actually used to be Joe Dumars' assistant, and John Hammond is the guy that drafted Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Milwaukee Bucks. So I just thought I'd throw that out there as well. So with that said, I'll pass the baton over to Josh this time, and let's talk about the Greek freak.
Giannis, he's a hard worker, very humble, probably one of my favorite in the NBA.
Okay, JB?
Quick story, and this is why I love him. Someone asked him why he's not very friendly with all the other superstars, because if you look at the NBA, all the big-name guys are all very friendly. He said, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to win. That doesn't mean he's disrespectful to any of them, but he doesn't care about all that. He just cares about winning. That's all you want in your superstar. He just has to learn how to shoot from the outside, and he'll be an unstoppable force.
Plus, he's working to improve his free throws as well, so at least he's got a little bit of a gym rat quality. So if he sees a weakness, he's going to work diligently to try to fix it. All right, Willie.
Yeah, I mean, he I apologize to that dude over and over and over again, because I was one that said that he was not a superstar. That was 3 or 4 years ago, but he quickly put that to bed last year after winning the championship. He's a 2-time MVP. He's a finals MVP. He's a great overall dominant player who really his arrow really, guys, are still pointing up as he continues to evolve and work on his game, particularly his outside jumper and his mid-range game. He can do it all. He kind of reminds me of a more athletic and bigger and more dominant Kevin Garnett.
Giannis might be one of those guys who I can actually say could play in any era too. And I can't say that about a lot of guys on this list, but you know what? I might be able to say with his athleticism and freakish athletic ability that I would actually say that Giannis to me could play in a lot of different eras, but we'll never know. It's just a hypothetical and nothing more than an opinion. So we'll talk about Luca Doncic. I know earlier today I like to watch the Wednesday show of First Take because I get to see Mad Dog Russo debate Stephen A. Smith. And Mad Dog made a very interesting comparison between Luca Doncic when he compared him to Larry Bird. Now, I don't know how valid of a comparison is, except for the fact that they can both shoot. And, of course, Larry Bird has always been one of my all-time favorite athletes because when he was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, I once asked him a question. I said, listen, Coach Bird, I realize you're not the most athletic guy in the world, but what makes you better than a lot of your competitors? And it was very polite when I asked him the question. He said, Scott, I like to think 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And I was fine with it. Shook his hand. Thank you very much for the word of wisdom. And I've always been a firm believer that I have a tremendous amount of admiration for Larry Bird. With that said, staying on point, Luca Doncic, Larry Bird. All right, Willie, do you see that any comparisons between these two or not?
Well, I've had a chance to talk to Luca in person. I've seen him up close in person, his game. He is a very, very humble individual who's a superstar. And when I had spoken to him, he was only in his second year in the league. And at that point, you could see, hear, and feel the maturity that he brought over from the EuroLeague. Comparison to Larry Bird, that's a bit of a. I think. Well, I mean, they're about the same size. Maybe Luca may be a little thicker. Bird is an inch taller. Bird can definitely shoot the ball better. I think Luca is way more of a playmaker than Bird could ever hope to be. So there are similarities in both of their games that thrust them to the forefront of where they are and where they ultimately could be. Now, Larry Bird is one of the greatest of all time, and Luca is certainly putting up the numbers to do what he's doing. Different time, different era. So by the time it's all said and done, Luca Doncic, you heard it here first. He is going to be the all-time leader in triple doubles.
Okay. All right. Well, down the line, I hope to have you back on, and I hope you're right. So with that said, JB, some observations about Luca Doncic.
Just an amazing athlete. He does everything. He can score, he can rebound, he can pass. He does whatever needs to be done. You know, that's the kind of guy you want on your team. Not a lot of people give, thought to how hard it is to get a triple-double or how important it is. I mean, that means you're filling every part of that stat sheet to help your team. And he does it consistently. It's not, not something that you look at and say, wow, he just doesn't do it. Great player. He's only going to get better. He's still young.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that he's being coached by Jason Kidd, who, by the way, was Coach Giannis as well. A little bit of a crossover comparison, but in that sense that Giannis was coached by Jason Kidd and now Luca as well. Of course, Rick Carlisle did a good job out in Dallas. So, Josh, any thoughts about Luca?
I don't really know much about him, but I will say after watching some highlights from the playoffs, he's a tough competitor. And I'm too young to make that comparison between him and Larry Bird. But what I do know, he's a tough competitor. And the Mavericks are on to the next round of the NBA playoffs. And I think Luca played a huge part in that.
Josh, I can hardly tell that you were too young to make that comparison to Larry Bird. But, I'm glad with that little baby face look of yours and your hat going the other way that the word Larry Bird and Josh Kirby, okay, but that's okay. We're glad.
Well, if I could, I just have a quick story about that.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so my father, back in the day, he grew up in Northern Virginia, like I did. And back in the day, when he was a teenager, early 20s, he looked exactly like Larry Bird. 100%, no joke. My dad's buddy and a friend of mine are at a bar in D.C., and my dad's buddy goes up to the actual Larry Bird, and he's like, hey, you look like my friend, and blurted my dad's name. And my dad's other friend with him, he's like, that's Larry Bird.
Well, you know what? I will say this before. Rick, go ahead and comment on Luca, and I want to get to these other folks. But I think Josh Kirby could win the Josh McCown lookalike contest.
You have a great radio voice too. I love your voice. It's a great radio voice.
Thank you. Yeah,
Very
I
Joe
have
Buckish.
insurance on this voice.
Yeah, I think Josh Kirby could win the Josh McCown lookalike contest. All right, Rick, give me some observations on Luca Doncic before we get to the final player, and then we got some heavy artillery on the back end. So go ahead, Rick.
Luca's a great guy. I mean, he's like 24 years old. My goodness, he's not even hit his prime yet, and look what he's done. The Larry Bird comparison. I mean, they're both white. I mean, that's all I can say about them, and that's the only comparison I can say about them. They're both white. So I mean, but he's different from Larry Bird. In my opinion. I mean, Larry Bird to me is the greatest shooter of all time. I mean, he was just Mr. Clutch, and I like Luca. I think he could do a lot more I think he's more athletic than Larry Bird, but I mean, he's so young, and I think he's going to win championships, and I think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame if he can stay healthy and consistent, which I can see him doing. So, great player, super young. I mean, the Mavericks have hit gold to these European players, first with Dirk Nowitzki, now with um, Jokic. So I mean, they're both great players, and I like them. I like him a lot, and I just think he's another uh, future bright spot with a Greek Freak and with John Moran as with the NBA.
Okay, and the last guy I want to get to on the what's right, or of course not in your eyes with Draymond Green, right? But for the most
Yeah.
part, the what's right, okay, of the list is Nikola Jokic. So I will say one thing: I used to work with Brendan Malone when back in the day when he was the assistant coach with the Detroit Pistons, and now of course he's playing for Michael Malone. All I'll say about Nikola Jokic, and I'm going to let you guys talk about it, is I think he was the right guy to win the MVP award, and he just doesn't get a lot of publicity because he plays on the West Coast, and he plays in a tough conference. So the right man won the MVP, although Joel Embiid could have made a good case for it as well. And Nikola, he means an awful lot to the Nuggets. I'm leaving it at that. Willie, you're from the Western Conference, is more up your bag, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the Joker, second straight MVP award, he probably deserved it more this year than he did last year. I actually had Joel Embiid pegged as the winner, but when you break it down in terms of what they both had, even with the drama that Embiid had in Philadelphia with the whole Simmons thing, Nikola Jokic, he did not have Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, none of this year, and MPJR for a good portion of the year. And he was able to do what they did, help them do what they did, and go into the playoffs before they got gentlemanly swept by the Warriors. But this dude is the real deal, man. And it doesn't matter how ugly we as fans may think his game is. This dude just performs.
JB?
Can't say it any better than that. He just goes out there, does his thing. He's a hard worker. He doesn't really say much. He leads that team. And, they had unfortunate injury issues. They probably overperformed with their injury issues, and largely because of what he did this year. It's really the best thing I could say about him. And they're going to be a really good team. The Western Conference is loaded, but they're going to be a very good team for years to come, having him anchor that team.
Josh, any thoughts of Nikola?
I agree with JB and you, Scott. He's a hard worker, but I just don't think he gets enough publicity. The more publicity he gets, maybe the more well-known he will become, but he's a hard worker. He's tough.
Rick?
Phenomenal player, very underrated, very unappreciated. He plays in Denver, loaded conference. Doesn't have the biggest personality. That's probably one of the reasons why he's so underrated. But because he's humble, he's not a drama queen. Just goes out there and does his job. He just reminds me of just a blue-collar, hardworking guy that goes out there and I'm going to score, rebound, blah, blah, blah. And I don't really care about getting my name in the headlines as long as we win. So great player, back-to-back MVPs. I think when he back-to-back MVPs in any league, especially now, is very, very impressive. And he's just an all-around great player.
All right, now the part of the broadcast everybody's looking forward to, okay? These names, okay? We're going to lead off with Kyrie Irving. And let me go over a little information about Kyrie Irving. And I was so happy that it happened, that Nike is unlikely to extend his signature shoe deal to Mr. Part-Time Player. Okay, he didn't want to go ahead and get vaccinated. No problem. I'm only going to play 29 games, didn't play New York, okay? You left people hanging. You can't leave Kevin Durant out there all by himself when he went there because of you in the first place. And I know a lot of this is going to be addressed in the future CBA with guys playing whenever they want, load management, as you were alluding to. So everybody gets to take a crack at Kyrie Irving. I'll just say one thing about Nike. Cheers, Nike. You got to start taking away money from these guys if they don't play, because you can't represent the brand if they're in the locker room and not on the court. So Kyrie Irving, lead it off there, Willie.
He is a phenomenal player. He is one of the clutchest shooters that I've seen. His handle it mirrors that of my favorite all-time player, which is Isaiah Thomas. With that being said, Kyrie Irving is unreliable, unpredictable, and just flat out undeniable when it comes to his availability. And Nike taking away their money or not renewing his contract or whatever, stay tuned because there's going to be more of that coming. But other than that, you can't. This dude has missed more games in the last 3 years than he has. I don't know. It's weird. And from all accounts, I mean, everybody that knows him seems to say that he's a great guy, but he just wants to play part-time, I guess. I don't know. And then on top of that, he thinks the world is flat.
But here's the thing, Willie. Okay, he's missing him for different reasons. 1 minute it's a vaccine, the next minute it's this, the next minute it's that. And the reality of the situation is how many people would love to be able to play in the league, and this guy is finding ways to not play. Again, whether it's vaccine or whatnot. We're just going to put an et cetera next to Kyrie Irving about ways to invent ways to miss games. All right, JB, take it from there.
Listen, as far as Kyrie goes, if he can play defense, I'd have a lot of respect for him. Having him on the court, you only got 4 guys playing defense. Offensively, he's a great player. As far as who he is as a person and all that, listen to the JJ Redick podcast a couple of years ago. He's got a great personality, Kyrie. Really interesting to listen to. Before I listened to him and heard that, I was kind of like, I don't really like this guy. After listening to him for the hour, it was a great learning experience. I don't necessarily agree with him. I kind of understand him a little bit more. He's out there. He's got his own beliefs. But, that part I don't really care. As long as he gets on the court and plays, and he sticks to his convictions. He didn't want to get vaccinated, whatever. The Nets understood that what they had to deal with when they had that issue.
All right, Rick, I know you're probably raring at the bit to take a crack at Kyrie.
Yeah, he's everything what is wrong with the NBA. We all know he's a great player. He's just the most selfish human being in the NBA right now, and that's what Stephen A. Smith said, and I totally agree with him. He only plays when he wants to play. You don't get vaccinated, that's fine, but next he's Muslim, and he can't play on these days. It's always some excuse with this idiot, and he is an idiot. I mean, he doesn't believe dinosaurs existed, thinks the world is flat. Says he's idiotic, stupid things. He's just incredibly all about himself. He plays whenever he wants to. He's arrogant. He's just toxic. He's poison. I don't care how great you are. You're just a completely selfish, self-absorbed human being, and that's all he is. And I'm glad that Nike got rid of it, and I hope they do much, much more with other players. And he's just a very spoiled, entitled young person, just pretty much a product of what our society is with some of these young people, just spoiled and entitled. And he makes millions and millions of dollars, so that makes him even more spoiled. So he's everything what's wrong with the NBA, and I would want nothing to do with him if I was building a franchise.
Yeah, well, the Nets general manager, Sean Rooks, obviously addressed it at his final press conference. And, he talked about availability. Willie is a key word. And I have a feeling that if Sean, the general manager for the Nets, indeed is true to who he is, you can rest assured contract or whatever the case may be, it's going to hit him in the wallet in a lot of ways in terms of Supermax and all that kind of thing as well. And I hope the Nets can get in front of this whole thing. I really do, especially with Kyrie Irving. Willie, I'm going to go back to you on this.
I mean, yeah, it's like this is what really told the story for me when it comes to Kyrie Irving. He wanted out of Cleveland because he wanted to be the man. So he goes to Boston. He gets there, and people are saying, "Oh, the Boston Celtics are going to be this. They got Kyrie Irving and all this young talent." Well, he gets hurt, and the team plays better without him. Then he lies to the fans out there and says, "Yo, I'm coming back. I'm not going anywhere." And then what does he do? He ends up in Brooklyn. So then he gets to Brooklyn, and he only plays a handful of games. He's responsible for getting Kevin Durant there. He's responsible for getting James Harden there. And then what happens? James Harden ends up in Philly, and now they have Ben Simmons. So to me, as long as Kyrie Irving is going to be the leader of your team, you're never going to win a championship.
All right, Josh, what's your take on good old Kyrie Irving?
2 words: drama causer. It's ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
You know,
Any more, my breath, I might go out of breath. It's just a waste of breath,
You know, I'll tell you, Josh, I like that. What do you guys think? Drama causer.
I like it.
I
That
just
should be a
think
hashtag. That's the hashtag.
drama causer. Okay, we'll have to remember that. All right, well, let's talk about Ben Simmons. We were just dancing around him. This guy needs Sigmund Freud more than anything else. 1 minute he can't shoot, he can't play defense, from what I understand. And now he wasn't able to play due to a back injury. I'm not going to complain about a guy with a back injury. I've had back surgery before. But when Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers called him out because he didn't want to go ahead and shoot, you know, to me, Ben Simmons is another thing that's wrong with the NBA. You know, if it isn't one thing, it's another, you know, and it's too bad because they had a lottery pick invested. I think they had the foundational piece in Philadelphia. The guy can't handle a little criticism, a little bit soft, too bad. So, Willie, you know what? You talked about Kyrie. I want you to pick your comments up about Ben Simmons.
Oh my gosh, it's going from bad to worse. Ben Simmons is okay. Let me preface this by saying this. I absolutely 1,000,000% empathize with anybody that has mental health issues. As a person that suffers from that and as an advocate for that, we don't want to make any jokes about that side of it. However, when it comes to his play on the court, I don't understand people who were saying that Ben Simmons was a jump shot away from being LeBron James. I don't understand why people were saying that Ben Simmons is a superstar talent. What Ben Simmons is a 6'11" guard, or he's a 6'11" basketball player that just so happens to be able to handle the rock pretty good. He can't shoot outside of 3 feet. You can't have him on the court during crunch time if he's going to be your primary ball handler. And his defense, yeah, he's a great weak side defender. But what do we know about him as far as being an own-the-ball defender when it comes to having to guard people like Kyrie, like Steph, like Clay, like Devin Booker? I just think that it's a total waste of height. And if I could have just gotten 8 inches of his 6'11" frame added to my height, then we would be talking about me in these Hall of Fame conversations. I'm telling you right now.
Well, you know, that's a pretty interesting perspective. I'll ride with it. And I hate to tell you this, Willie, but the other names I have here, okay, it didn't get any easier. I tried to get you guys off easy with the other guys. So, but that's okay. What we have here is we have a lot of drama causers, okay? And we're just getting, things are more interesting. But, yeah, you know, to me, Ben Simmons, you know, there's a lot of TBDs to be figured out with them. JB, where do you want to go with the Ben Simmons saga?
Listen, I get the mental health thing. You know, by all means, if you're suffering from mental health, you know, I'm not going to ever put you down for that. But to me, the bigger problem comes from Doc Rivers after that game when you're in the press conference, you know, and you're the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and you don't defend one of the guys that they're calling one of your star players. You don't necessarily have to say he had a great game, but you got to protect him because you need him. He's the core of your team at that point. So it starts with Doc Rivers there. Then Ben handled it horribly, saying, "Oh, I don't want to play. I want to be traded." So he already diminished his value until it got to the trade deadline and they traded garbage for garbage, you know. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see how he rectifies his career. I thought he had a shot. If he came to New York, to Brooklyn, got on the court, showed that he wanted to play basketball, followed Steve Nash and learned maybe to shoot a little bit, maybe hit the gym and just tried, maybe that would, you know, help rebuild. Because if you win in New York, people love you. But I think after what he did last year, he's going to have to come out next year, show he's serious about wanting to play. Being in New York, people will have a short-term memory if you win. So if he comes out there and they do well, and he's a contributing part to the Nets doing well, it'll change the image of him. But at the same time, the past, I blame Doc for a lot of that.
Well, you can't throw your player under the bus, especially publicly. That doesn't help matters any either. But the guy's suing Philadelphia, what, $20 million to try to an grievance. We'll see where that one goes. Good luck. And you're talking about a lot of these guys that are actually being paid 30 to 35 million and not available to play. So, and many of them as well. So those are some numbers I'll throw. All right, Josh, some quick thoughts of Ben Simmons.
If you're going through mental health issues, yeah. I mean, it's a big topic going on in today's world. So obviously thoughts and prayers if Ben Simmons is dealing with something more than what is shown to light in the media. But on the other side of things, I feel like making excuses in the NBA should be dealt with more seriously than it is. I mean, it's like basically a slap on the wrist. I mean, I just really don't agree with it. And it's, it's just another reason why this list is so tough to talk about, is because these are some of the players in the NBA who just, it's just, we don't really have a lot of positives to say.
Well, not right now, but you know what? When it's all said and done and we get done wrapping the show, I do want to make sure I put the right bow on it. So I'm glad that we're addressing it as well, because it's an important time when you talk about the playoffs. So, Rick, let's talk about Ben Simmons.
Yeah, he's an idiot. What can I say about him? I said Kyrie's the most selfish. Ben Simmons is the most laziest. I don't believe he's got mental health problems. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. Again, we got to make excuses for these spoiled, pampered, $30 million a year guy. He don't want to play. He has no heart. He doesn't care. He just wants his money. He was drama in Philadelphia. He's drama in Brooklyn. They're regretting getting him now. He just doesn't want to play. He just wants his money. And he's just I'm sorry, part of the problem with some of these young people, no offense, Josh, in our society, and some of them just make excuses. They don't want to work. They'll blame COVID. They'll blame mental health. They'll blame all these social issues that we have just so they don't want to play, because they're spoiled and entitled people. And that's what I see of Ben Simmons. He's spoiled, entitled. He's selfish. He's done this before when he was with LSU. He didn't want to play. Even going back to when he was with Australia, he didn't feel like playing. He just has no heart. To me, it's just a waste of talent. He's got all the talent in the world, and it's just a complete waste of talent.
Okay. Well, we're going to change gears just a little bit. Okay. We'll take away from the head cases a little bit to a guy that you hope reaches his potential. And I'm referring to Zion Williamson. The only thing I can say about Zion Williamson, I hope he doesn't become the next Sam Bowie, that you took a guy because you needed strength, on the boards, because we all know Sam Bowie was obviously, I think, picked ahead of Michael Jordan, and we all know how that turned out. So you hope and pray that Zion Williamson does well with the New Orleans Pelicans, and they're building a pretty good team down there with David Griffin. They really are. So I don't think this is as bad as these last two guys. So the question is, will Zion Williamson be able to make a difference, Willie, down in New Orleans? And I think the pieces are starting to come together. And will he see it through, or is he just going to be all down the road, put in the bust category, Willie?
I won't call him a bust, but I have never been sold on Zion Williamson's game.
Okay.
Never. He's always been the best player on the court. He's always been the strongest guy on the court. One of the most, if not the most athletic player on the court. Well, guess what? When you get to the NBA, everybody's like that. And you ain't by yourself out there like that. I don't think his game translates well to this version of the NBA, where you have either people going all the way to the hoop and yamming on people, which we obviously know that he can do. But the other part of it is that his jump shot, his mid-range game is non-existent. His three-point game is suspect as at best. And can he even handle the ball with his right hand? These are things we got to find out.
Okay. JB?
I just don't think he wants to play in New Orleans. I mean, he's obviously had injury issues. Just don't think he's happy there. I think, he probably could have come back this year. He just doesn't, for whatever reason. Anthony Davis was there. He didn't want to play there. I think Zion's kind of, doing the same thing where he wants to get out, and I think he's going to end up on the Knicks eventually with RJ and, and that Knicks team, which has a lot of Duke guys.
Okay. All right, Josh, any thoughts about Zion?
Yeah, I'm going to bounce off what JB said. I just don't think he wants to play in New Orleans. I feel like this is his way of showing that he wants out, and I think that could potentially happen. But other than that, Zion, I think I don't really have a big issue with him. In terms of I don't think in my mind he causes a lot of issues. I know a lot of people have made fun of him because he was overweight at one point, something like that. But I think it just comes down to he just wants out of New Orleans, and this is his way of showing it.
All right, well, that's an interesting perspective. Rick?
Yeah, Willie didn't say it. I'll say it. He is a bust. I never was sold on him. Ja Morant should have been the number one pick. Never liked Zion. I thought he was overrated. He's really out of shape. His condition is not good. And to me, that just shows me that your heart's not into it. He'd rather sit on the bench and show off his fancy jewelry. And look at how much money I got. Like a lot of these young players with all the jewelry and rings and all the cars and look at me, but they don't want to put the work into it. They just want to cash their paycheck. And whether he wants to play there or not, I don't know. I just don't see him wherever he goes. I don't see him doing anything. I think he's just so injury prone. I think Sam Bowie is a great comparison, Scott. He is a lot like Sam Bowie, except Sam Bowie had heart, and I just don't see that in Zion. I just see him as just another spoiled, pampered, rich guy that just wants to cash his paycheck, and he's a complete bust.
I got to say one thing. When you have a lot of guys on a broadcast, it makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to talk as much because you guys are saying a lot of what I think. So you want to add to that, Willie, real quick before we go on to we only have 3 more players to get to, so hang with me, guys, okay? Anything else you want to add to it, Willie?
Nah, I'm good. We can go to the next bust. Our next player.
Well, I like bust player. All right, that was
Next
good.
case.
Slip that one in. All right, very good. Willie, I'll tell you, I like you more and more every week, Willie. I'm telling you. All right, so we'll go over to Russell Westbrook. This problem is he can't find a home and he can't play defense. So, I'm telling you guys, I can tell everybody's in a really good mood tonight with the group that I picked there. So Willie's scratching his head. Russell Westbrook, man, is he one of those guys that's going to score a lot of points, can't get another title? Let's just see what you have to think, Willie. I'm telling you, the man of the hour here.
Russell Westbrook never cheats us with his effort. He gives 1,000,000% all the time. He plays with a chip on his shoulder even to this day. Russell Westbrook is the most athletic point guard that I have ever seen. With that being said, when he was traded to the Lakers from the Wizards, I absolutely hated it. I hated it because Russell Westbrook cannot shoot. Russell Westbrook, yeah, he's a walking triple-double, but you can't pair that with LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the same squad. So I love Russell Westbrook as a player. I'm a big fan of his. I just think he's a horrible fit for the Lakers. And I'm a Laker fan. So,
JB?
Yeah, I like Russell Westbrook. I just don't think it's the right fit for him. Unfortunately, the guy plays hard. People don't like him for some reason. He does a couple of different things that I'm not fond of, but as on the court, which is really all I care about, he plays hard. Could be a better defensive player, but he leaves it out there. That's what you want in a guy. So I just think he needs to find the right team so he can do what he needs to do and be a better piece for the right team.
Okay, no, I know, JB, you have to leave in a moment, so I'm going to give you 2. I'll ask you about 2 players, and then we'll let you go. I want to make sure you get the opportunity.
I appreciate it.
No problem. I know you have other obligations. Give me some quick thoughts about LeBron James, and then at least you guys can gather your thoughts about where we're going to go with it. LeBron James.
So LeBron James, I don't like him personally, but I can't say anything bad about him. He's everything that, as a person or a player, you should aspire to be. But I don't like him ever since that whole decision thing, and I don't like the flops. But, I've gotten into soccer over the last couple of years. I'm going to assume LeBron is a big soccer fan and he learned it that way. So I'll give him that one.
Okay, and last but not least, we'll let you talk about James Harden. And then when you're done, you can let everybody know they can get hold of you. And then the rest of us will comment on the remaining things. Go ahead.
I appreciate it, Scott. So James Harden, just a disappointment. He was the guy in Houston. They did everything they could to try and get him to be a winner there. They brought in whoever. They tried different systems, different things. It didn't work. He went to the Nets. He was teamed up with Durant and Kyrie, who never played because of the vaccine issue. And, they were going at it, whatever behind the scenes, and he wasn't happy. He was going to, from what I heard, he was going to make himself sit out games. So they ended up having to trade him. But to me, that's not the way to do it. You resolve your issues, do what you have to do. When you're on a team, you have to do certain things. You're still cashing that paycheck. So play the games, and stop being a fraud, basically. And that's what he showed me to be. I'm not really a big fan of Harden.
Okay. So, well, you're not a big fan. All right. So, all right, JB, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you, and then we'll see you next Wednesday.
So JB_ the program on Twitter and at Sideline Sports 1, which is the network. Definitely check us out. Guys, it was a pleasure. Sorry I had to run early, but good seeing everybody. I'll see you next week.
You got it. Thank you very much, JB. Appreciate you.
Good night, JB.
Good night, guys.
All right. With that said, okay, let's back up a little bit. I know Willie talked about Russell Westbrook, so now we can go back on that again, okay? I think you're 100% right that he's just not a good fit for the Los Angeles Lakers. He's really not. There isn't enough the basketball isn't big enough for what you have there. You're talking about Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. What about Carmelo Anthony? And the list goes on and on. So I guess I'm going to ask you this, Willie. Do you feel sorry for Russell Westbrook?
No.
You don't? Okay.
No. Heck no.
Okay. Josh, some thoughts about Russell Westbrook?
Man, you're going to love this. Being a Wizards fan, I had a lot of joy in seeing those consecutive triple-doubles. It just felt like a dream come true. And it was like there was this sense in Wizards fans, not necessarily me, because I'm a realist, but Wizards fans, oh man, Russell Westbrook's killing it. The Wizards are going to get to the NBA Finals and win the whole thing. But I mean, obviously that ended up tanking and crashing and burning, and the Wizards trying to find the right pieces to fit into the puzzle. And the best thing for the Wizards was to trade away Russell Westbrook. And now Russell Westbrook is not doing so well because of what Willie said, the group he is a part of. I mean, it's like fitting it's like one extra piece to the puzzle. Like there's not really a place you can fit him in because there's so many big names on the Lakers. It's like there are too many weapons and they can't utilize all of them. So nothing negative. Yeah, actually, I do have some negative things. The drama part of the league is Russell Westbrook's outbursts. I know as a Wizards fan, I did see him outburst at a fan in the stands and ended up getting fined for that. So that's the drama part of Russell Westbrook. I think Russell Westbrook complains a lot about the fouls. I remember back when Westbrook announced he was signing with the Wizards, I was like, this is bad. This is going to be bad. And my buddy was like, oh, yeah, the Wizards are going to be in contention for the playoffs now because of that. Not true at all. And the Wizards won out big with that trade for Westbrook to the Lakers. But I mean, it's just one too many pieces in the puzzle, and it's a lot with Russell.
All right, Rick, some thoughts about Russell Westbrook?
He's actually my favorite player on this list. I think he's great. I love his passion. I love his drive. I love he just goes out there. But like these guys said, he's just in the wrong team. I blame LeBron for all this. He's the one that put this ragtag group together with Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard and these aging fossils on a team. He's just in the wrong place. If I was Russell, I would want to go back to Oklahoma City, where he started, where he was beloved, another small market. They don't have any baseball there. They don't have, they have the Sooners, and that's it. It was the Thunder. The crowd is phenomenal. They love Russell out there. He's a massive superstar. You don't have to be a big star and be in a small market. Look at the Greek Freak, and other, look at Ja Morant. They're in small markets. So Russell needs to go back to Oklahoma City, where he can just dominate. They'll love him. And to me, if he can just cut out all the drama and I don't know who dresses him. But if he can cut that out, and go back to Oklahoma City and just dominate like he was doing before, man, he's going to go to Hall of Fame.
Well, Rick, I got to tell you, you do give me a very good segue here. Okay, right, Mr. GMTA. Okay, I got to have Willie GMTA. We're going to give him a new nickname to GMTA to go along with what he has. Great segue, though. I have a problem with LeBron James, the de facto general manager. He didn't get away with it with Pat Riley in Miami. Pat Riley let him know, okay, that LeBron, your role is to play, and my goal is to be a team builder, and we all saw where that went. So no, LeBron James, okay, your job is to put the ball in the hole or pass it and help us win, and I will do that. But the de facto general manager for sure, yes, he's got 4 titles. He had to run to Miami to get 2 of them. Okay, and then, of course, he's got one with the Lakers. And I think the best title that he had, to me, was when he had won it in Cleveland. But I want to go back to Russell Westbrook for a quick second, okay? I think he should go back to Oklahoma City. He really should. No pressure there at all. And, they will appreciate him a lot. So that's an excellent point, Rick. It really, really is. That if there's ever a place where Russell Westbrook should finish his career, it should be there. Now, so let's talk about LeBron James, because let's face the reality, he put that team together that brought Russell Westbrook there, and it's unfortunate because I do feel sorry for him. When you look at the fact that Frank Vogel is a heck of a coach and lost a job, he should never have lost that job because he didn't assemble that roster. It was his job to coach it. Since, Willie, you're a big Lakers guy, I've said a mouthful, then again, I usually do anyways. You want to go ahead and give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, LeBron James, the GM, no, he should never have he should never have a majority rule or vote in something like that ever again. I think he's done winning titles, not just in LA, but in his career. I don't think he's gonna ever win another title. There have been rumblings that he could go back to Cleveland, but he will be a 38-year-old unrestricted free agent after this season, or 39 at that point. Going back to Cleveland at that point, they got a lot of nice young pieces there, but LeBron James, in my opinion, he's not, and I repeat, he is not the best player that I've ever seen. That distinction goes to Michael Jordan, and for always and forever will be.
Well, I'll tell you the best player I've ever seen, or I'll go with Magic Johnson, but that's just my opinion.
Right.
Okay. All right, Josh.
Yeah. So LeBron James, obviously, can't really say anything bad about him because of the fact of the matter. He's such a good player. I'm not going to bring up the Jordan versus LeBron debate, anything like that. But in this modern era, right, in this modern day in the NBA, I mean, he's done so much for the league. There's not really much negative I can say about him. He should stick to playing, not being the GM. And it's going to be interesting to see if what he said it's true about he wants to play his last season with his son once Bronny gets drafted. And he said he'll take whatever amount of money to play with his son, and that's how he ends his career. I think that would be pretty special.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm not even saying anything about it. I'm leaving that one to you, Rick. And then we got one more player, and that's everybody's favorite, James Harden.
LeBron is going to go down as one of the top 5 greatest players of all time. No, he's not better than Michael Jordan. He's not better than Will Chamberlain. Magic Johnson to me, and I grew up in Los Angeles, greatest basketball player I ever saw. He was amazing. LeBron is so weak-minded mentality. He's 6'9", 250 pounds. He's so strong, but mentally he's so weak. I've never seen a quote-unquote star, as he likes to call himself, the GOAT, as he likes to call himself, not want to take the game-winning shot. Jordan wanted the game-winning shot. Tom Brady wanted the game-winning shot. Magic Johnson, the greats, want the game-winning shot. He does not want the game-winning shot. He's scared to death because, oh, my God, what if I miss? Well, who cares if you miss? No one's going to remember that. And so mentality, he's weak. He's selfish. It's all about him. He's the smartest guy in the world. I know more than anybody on there. To me, he's poison. I've never seen a guy eject fans because they're mocking him. I mean, how weak is that? And the NBA lets them get away with it. That's the wrongness of it. They let him get away with that, and so they need to stop drinking the LeBron Kool-Aid. He's going to be 38, 39 years old. I'm glad Pat Riley put his foot down and said, get out of here. And this is all Jenny Buss's fault for giving him all this freedom to do what he wants. And, God rest his soul. If Jerry Buss was still alive, this would not be happening. He'd be gone 2 years ago.
The only thing that I'll say with one of the last words, unless Willie wants to add something to it, LeBron James would never have been able to make it in the 80s and 90s when the game of basketball was 100 times more physical than it is now.
No way.
He's lucky to be playing in the era that he's playing in. So that's all I have to say. I don't know. I'd put him in my top 10 players of all time. I wouldn't put him in my top 5, and that's me. But I've seen probably a lot more basketball than a lot of other people. Willie, you want some final thoughts on LeBron before we go to James Harden?
Nah, it's just that it's hard to compare these different eras, and
Right.
We get caught up in the greatest ever and the best I've ever seen, and the most accomplished and the most talented. All those things, man, they're all different. And I put LeBron in probably the top 7 in every one of those categories. But as far as being any higher than number 3, I can't see it. I can't see him being better than Michael Jordan or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I'm with you all the way. If I had to choose between Jordan or James, that's a no-brainer. I go Jordan all day long. All right, final person I want to talk about is James Harden. Quit on Houston, Brooklyn, underperformed in Philadelphia, forced his way out of there, hasn't won a championship, wonder why. When they needed him, when Joel Embiid was down, wasn't there either. Hasn't won a championship ring, wonder if he ever will. So with that said, Willie, to me, James Harden is toxic. And here's a guy that has so much talent and he could get more out of when he can. And I don't definitely feel he's worth a max contract at all. But, I have a problem with James Harden. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most dynamic offensive players that I've ever seen. But unfortunately, that style of play for a person or for a player that is that ball dominant is not going to be successful in terms of trying to get to a championship. And the late, great Kobe Bryant said it best, that James Harden is phenomenal. He's great. He's a superstar. He's one of the most talented players in the NBA. But that style of play will not ever win you a championship. And for me, aside from my personal feelings about that dude, I actually think he is a great player. I think he is a superstar. He's clearly on the backside of his career at this point, and he's going to he's not going to be able to dominate from the point guard position the way that he has because of his, number one, his conditioning and his age, and the fact that he is, in my opinion, is or has lost a step. So he is going to have to be the second or even third option on a team for him to get an NBA championship.
Well, Stephen A. Smith summed it up best. Stephen A. a little loud for my taste, but as long as you research your information, I don't care. But the word slippage is how you can describe what I think James Harden's game, and I don't think he's worth the max contract. Josh, any thoughts about James Harden?
I'll say once again, drama causer. Yeah. I mean, the rest of you all said it best, but I think another big drama causer.
Rick?
Yeah, he's cancer to a team. I mean, everywhere he goes, he causes cancer. I mean, he caused it with the Rockets. He caused it. He's going to cause it again at Philadelphia. It's just a matter of time. Of course, with Brooklyn. Everywhere he goes, it's all about him. If he spent more time on the basketball court than he did in strip clubs, he'd probably be the greatest basketball player that ever lived. It's just that he just wants to be a celebrity. That's all he wants to be. Is he a great player? Yeah, he was a great player, but he's lost a step. And, who would want him? Why would you want that with all that baggage and all that drama? He just wants to be a celebrity, dating the Kardashians and all that stuff. That's all he cares about. Another greedy, spoiled, entitled person that thinks the world revolves around him. And he's just he's a choker. We see what he does in the playoffs. He cannot win in the playoffs. He chokes. He choked again. And, you can tell Embiid, it's just a matter of time that he wears out his welcome at Philadelphia. And Bon Voyage, I never want to see him play again. I cannot stand him.
Well, I guess I can say one thing, because there's a guy like Charles Barkley. He does a lot of our talking for us, because I think a lot of people I love watching Charles Barkley on the air.
Me too.
Because you know what, Willie, what I like about him is he played the game hard. I love Charles Barkley. Played hard, and the only reason he didn't win a championship, he played against so many great players, but at least he was on the dream team. So Charles Barkley is the voice of the people. Okay, is what I think that he is. So people wonder, why would I bring on such great players that started and then talk about these other personalities on the back end? Now I'm going to give you the real reason why I actually structured it this way. When I was back, before I started covering the bad boys, when the NBA ended up getting good, I watched the NBA nearly go bankrupt. And I mean, repeat, bankrupt, until Larry Bird and Magic Johnson rescued the league. That's why I did what I did when I structured this broadcast at the beginning, because the NBA has a lot of great things to look forward to. And we talked about that. If you folks out there that are watching this show have the stamina and strength to get through this show, and I don't talk a lot about NBA, but once in a while I do, then more power to you. You really, to me, that's better than the 24 hours of Daytona with an endurance race watching this broadcast, okay? But remember, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson turned around the NBA, went broke. Okay, I remember watching these games on tape delay. Now, Josh, we know you're definitely, I don't even know if your folks were alive to see it on tape delay.
You haven't even thought of, Josh.
Okay.
What's a tape?
Right, exactly.
Tape?
Payphone? Josh, we might put it in interesting digital delay for all we know. I mean, because of the era that we're talking about. But when you watch a sport go nearly bankrupt, Irvin, Magic Johnson, and obviously Larry Bird turned around. Isaiah came later, and Jordan came later. The rest and the rest of them. That's why I did things the way that I did. Tape delay, folks. Okay, and I'll tell you what, Adam Silver, you don't need to. I mean, I understand the playing tournament's not that bad, and all these little mid-season tournaments. What's killing your league is that you trying to find different ways to make it interesting. Okay, to keep people engaged, you need to get rid of the toxic nature for how these players are acting that are turning off the fans, right, Willie? This is what's killing the NBA, and that's why I titled the show the National Drama League, because it is drama where the drama is overshadowing the play, because the NBA has some exceptional athletes, and you have a lot of great players, and yes, you're right, Willie, it is impossible to compare eras. It really is. But remember, and I can't say this enough, Once upon a time, the NBA was on tape delay. Thank you very much, Magic Johnson. Thank you very much, Larry Bird, because these guys are being paid because you guys saved the league. That's the reason why these guys are earning the money that they're earning, and they live as nicely as they do. And it's too bad that some of these individuals are giving the league a bad name that all these other individuals have worked hard to try to build it up. Willie, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson saved the league. Michael Jordan and that crew elevated it.
Excellent. Well said. Rick?
I totally agree. Was it for them, it would be bankrupt. They saved it. And yeah, you're right, Willie. I totally agree. Michael Jordan just elevated it. And then when Nike got there and the shoes, it just exploded.
Josh, I know this is your first act, and you certainly got a lot more than you bargained for tonight. But I got to tell you, Josh, I think you've done a really nice job. What do you think about Josh, guys? The way he's
awesome.
You know what, though, Josh? I think the next time you come on, though, you're going to have to put in your little thing called Drama Causer as your nickname, because Eric Katz has concrete dump on the baseball version. So I will never forget Josh Kirby for ever mentioned Drama Causer. So, but Josh, you've done a really good job. Any closing thoughts about the NBA lesson that you ended up getting tonight?
Well, I'm too young to remember tape delay or anything like that, so I can neither agree nor disagree to the statements you just put out. But great show. Had a lot of fun with you, Scott, and the rest of the gang. Rick, Mr. Opinion, and Willie. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Very good. All right. Well, I know we've gone a little bit longer, but I knew that this was one show that we would put together that, because of the extensive nature of the subject, that warranted the attention. And I'm glad that we were all able to have an opportunity to equally talk about what we want. The one thing I do have a policy, folks, when I get into comprehensive subjects, is I will not shorten the show so that my people cannot say what they feel, since they've dedicated a certain amount of time of their evening to be with us. So I feel it's only fair. Everybody gets a fair opportunity without being cut off to speak their mind. And I apologize for nothing. And I'm glad that you guys were able to get things off your chest. And I'm glad that we were able to address the subject, because let's face it, we're watching these games during the height of the playoffs. Some of these teams should have been deeper into the playoffs because of circumstances. They're not in there. I talk about the Nets and the 76ers, and the beat goes on. Obviously, as you go deeper into the tournament, it's tough. But underachieving, overachieving, and that's probably one of the things that provided the impetus for me to come up with this broadcast as I did. So with that said, okay, Rick, or actually, we're going to lead off with you, Josh. Why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you, and then I'll go ahead and let everybody know if you're watching the show here. All of our information is on here. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, or you can visit us at the website, www.southfloridatribune.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. And the broadcast can also be heard on iHeartRadio. So, all right, Josh, why don't you give everybody a quick overview how they get a hold of you?
That's my brand on a hat. It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Opinion would look good in one of these. You too, Willie.
I want to look dope too.
Oh yeah. See, I'm telling you, all I do is great stuff. The Kirby on Sports podcast right there. But anyways, check out all my work, www.kirbyonsports.com. We're on all streaming platforms, all social media platforms, and on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to rock the Kirby on Sports podcast, just hit me up. You got my info. I just dropped my email down there. And Scott, you're the man. I appreciate our connection. It was a lot of fun today, brother.
Oh, it's been an awful lot of fun for sure. So with that said, okay, Rick, go ahead real quick, and then we're going to wrap it up in a moment.
You can find me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there, and for people to go on there and sign it, trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball, and also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti.
Okay. Well, all right. With that said, okay, Willie, one last time, and then I'm going to wrap it up in just a moment.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were the Charlotte Bats, Rick. I mean, I followed
That's
you on
me.
Twitter and you didn't give me a follow back, so I owe
I'm
you.
sorry. I'll find you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but and Josh, I see your message, man. Definitely we can do that. You can find me on Twitter, Shakeback Media Group, Instagram, Shakeback Media Group, Facebook, the Shakeback Media Group LLC. Even on YouTube, and we have a Roku TV network channel as well that I am building. And of course Scott is interested in that. So yeah, we're trying to partner with people who want to get their brand expanded. You can bring in your own sponsors, the whole nine. Roku TV has a viewership reach of up to 40 million people.
All right, and I'll leave it at that. With you, one last with us, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Reach me on Twitter at Tribune South. And please, once again, don't forget to subscribe to South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. The title of this broadcast is the National Drama League, the NDL. So on behalf of Rick Curti, Josh Kirby, Willie Epting Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Until the next time, good night, everybody. God bless, and thanks for staying with us. Have a good night, folks.
Good night.